Is everybody ready? Today I want to talk about filters versus effects and styles and appearances a little bit. Those things, and they're all interrelated. Let's first talk about filters versus effects. And so if I go here, if I select this rectangle with the pattern fill, and I select filter, and I come down here to artistic fills. Notice that they're all grayed out. All these filters are grayed out, so I can't apply them. What filters and effects are basically Photoshop filters and effects. When I go to effect instead of filters, and I select artistic effects, for example, a colored pencil, notice that it's available now. And this is what it does to it. You can select paint jobs, you can select cutout, you can select from any number of effects, where you have underpainting or watercolor effect. And the only way you can really tell what this thing is going to look like is to actually look at the preview, if it is available, and check it out and see if it's something that looks worthwhile to you. Okay? So why is it that filters are not available in effects only? The reason is that filters have to work with a bitmap file. So the only way that I can apply a filter to this is to, I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of it first, set it aside so that I can use it again, is go to Object and rasterize it. And when I rasterize it, it's going to ask me, what resolution do I want it to be when I rasterize it? Do I want it screen resolution? Do I want it high 300 pixels per inch, or do I want something else that's custom? Depending on what you're going to do with this, if you're designing for the web, leave it at 72. If you know in advance what kind of print you're going to make, then 150 might be adequate. You might have to do 300. For demonstration purposes, 72 is just fine. So now that I've rasterized it and I go to filter, notice that all of these are available now. So that's one fundamental difference. That effects can be applied to. I can select this, or let me go back to here and move this one to the side and put this one back over. So this one now is a vector graphic, and I go to effects, and I can apply the same ones, any of these. Pixelate, how about Mesotent, see what that looks like. So I can apply any number of effects to this, and it's still raster. I mean, I can, for a vector graphic, I can come back here, and instead of the waves pattern, I can go ahead and I can put inside of that a gradient fill. I can put in solid color. I can do whatever I want. And notice the effect is still applied to it, but I can change the interior shape. When I select this and I select another color, nothing changes. It's a permanent change is what I've done. So that leads to the next thing, is that when you do rasterize something, it's a permanent change. Filters are permanent. Effects can be edited infinitely. So why would you want to apply a filter if you can edit an effect infinitely? Effects are processor intensive. They take a lot of computing power to do it, and you may have noticed that if you apply a lot of effects, that it takes a while to redraw that image after a while. So it can really bog down your computer. So that would be the downside. That if you know for a fact that you want to apply a particular effect or a filter and it's permanent, you have no desire to change it, then go ahead and use a filter. That would be the way to go. Something else that you need to pay attention to when you rasterize an object. Notice that when I lay this circle on top of my rectangle, okay, you see the circle. Watch what happens when I rasterize it. When I select the circle and the object and I select rasterize, And if I just click the default setting OK, and then I move it on top, notice that when you rasterize it, it only recognizes rectangles. So it brought the background in with it, a default white. There is a workaround though. I can come back, let's undo this a couple times. And when I go to Object, Rasterize, so for rectangles it really doesn't matter because it fits a rectangular format anyway. You'll notice down here it says background. Do you want background white or do you want it transparent? Okay, so now when I click transparent and I move it over, it is rasterized. This is no longer vector graphic, even though it looks like, in many respects, identical to this. It doesn't remember one of the first days of class. When we zoom in, you're going to see those pixels. But if I do want to apply a filter, for example, maybe just add a drop shadow to it, that might be a nice way to go. Because it's permanent. Now, if I decide later on that I want to remove the drop shadow, that can be done. So it's permanent, but it's not editable in the way that you think, that you can double click on it and change the color of it or change the placement and that sort of thing. Where it is editable is you'll notice that it has turned this into a group. So when I twirl down on this, you'll notice that this image right here, it's on, you select all of them. And let's say I just want to select the drop shadow, and I can move. No, I can't. Hold on. Let me ungroup this then. Let's go to Object, Ungroup. And now they're separate objects, and when I select this one, there we go. Notice that this is a separate one. It's a separate, created a separate shape. On the other hand, if I get these out of the way, because I'm trying to go back and forth, so you can see what's going on here. If I select this vector object, and I go to Effect, and I go to Stylize, and I apply the drop shadow. Same settings, looks identical to it, doesn't it? And it is. But if I want to change that, or I want to remove it, it's much simpler. What I do then is I click on this little tab here, which says Appearance. And with the object selected, you'll notice that it gives me all of its attributes. Not only does it give me the scope, not only does it give me the fill, but if an effect has been applied, it tells me what effect, or effects, because you can add multiple effects to an object, have been applied. So now I can either click on here and throw it in the trash, or if I wish to edit it, maybe I want to change the color of it. Maybe I want it to be a purple drop shadow, not a black one. Double click on the effect, it brings up that effect. Now I can change the color of it, and I'll make it more of a pink or, let's go down here to purple. Now I have a purple drop shadow. So there's much more flexibility with effects, but if you know for a fact that what you want to apply to an object is permanent, and you don't want to kind of tax or overstress your computer, then just use filters. Filters are kind of a thing of the past, but they're still there, side by side. Okay? So do you, have I sort of explained clearly? There are a lot of differences, a lot of similarities. Because you'll be clicking here and you go, well, shoot, look at that. All these look identical to this. What's the difference between them? And they are just Photoshop effects. Now, we can apply each of these effects, because they are Photoshop effects, to an image. I imported this image. We've used this one before, and we've auto-traced it. But it's just a placed image, and even though it's a bitmap graphic, if I select the object, and I go to Effect, and I want to apply, well, I can apply an effect to it, but I can't apply a filter to it. Remember I said it has to be a bitmap graphic. Why can't I apply one of these filters to it? Because I still have to go to Object, and I have to rasterize. It's a raster object. Why do I have to rasterize? I don't have a clue. So now it's rasterized. Now I select it, Now I can go to filter and notice that all of these are available now. So why that is, I don't know. But you know, there's some fun effects, you know, like the ripple effect, glass effects. They're really pretty nifty. And all of these effects are in Photoshop as well. So there you go. Looks like you're in a shower, you know, looking for a shower door or something. So that's something you might want to think about. Now, what if you want to build a whole slew of different kinds of styles that you've applied these filters or these effects to objects and you want to repeat them, you want to use them again and again, and maybe it's taken you a while to build a certain combination of effects that give you a specific look that you want to use over and over, and you can't remember all the specific settings. Well, that's what we have. Let me close this for a minute. Is we have styles. So I'm going to go to window, and I want to show, where is the styles? Come on. Tools, transform, symbols, swatches, okay. Graphic styles, that's it. It's graphic styles, not just styles, it's graphic styles. And you'll notice that they provide just a handful of these here. But like many other things in Illustrator and Photoshop, if you click on this little button right here, we can have access to graphic style libraries. There's 3D effects, which I'll talk about shortly. That's an interesting effect. If you're designing for the web and you want to create some interesting buttons and rollovers and that sort of thing. There's a particular illustration that we saw under samples for neon effects, which are really cool. Textures, type effects, lots of really, really neat ones. So, for example, if I'm going to apply this to my picture here, I want to look at image effects. So let's look at these and see what we have that we can tinker with here. So with this one selected, let's go ahead and apply one of these to it and see what it does. Nothing. Raised edge. There. Didn't want that. Okay. Maybe some of these aren't going to look so hot on here. Okay, well, we've got them. Let's apply some of these here. I'm going to put this away. And let's take this one and apply this one and see what it looks like. Here we go. We have some raised edge, glow effect, top shadow, which is what we had before. Another one here. So let's say, you know what, this one looks pretty nice, but I also want to add a drop shadow to this. And I want to apply some other effects to it, just for the heck of it. What I can do is, once I've applied it, and I have my graphic styles here, I'm going to pull these off for a minute. And I'm going to go back to my appearance. I guess I can toggle back and forth. You'll notice when I look at this object and I see all of the effects that have been applied to this. Okay. Well, I can select any one of these effects, the rounded corners, or the offset path, or the drop shadow. And maybe I want the drop shadow to be a little bit more pronounced. So I'll double click on here, and I can change it. And we can increase maybe the opacity to 75%. Maybe the offset, we want it to be a little bit higher. Let's preview. Not quite so much. Okay. Let's change the color again, just for the heck of it. Okay, so I've made changes to this. And one more thing, let's come back up and maybe just to the color, just to the fill. I want to apply this effect anywhere else. I only want to apply it to the color. So I'll select the color right here. It only selects the fill that I have. And now when I apply the effect, I'm going to come down here. Let's apply the glass effect to it. Just to the fill. It's not going to look like. No, it's not. So let's apply color. Instead of color, I'm going to apply a pattern so you can actually see something going on here. There we go. Now I come back with this and I apply an effect. And I come down here to distort and I apply the glass effect. You'll see a little bit more pronounced. See that? Okay. Notice how it takes a while to redraw because a lot of those effects have been applied. Okay, so now I decide, you know what? I really would like to reuse this again and again and again. And I don't want to have to think about all of the effects that I've applied and all of the settings. So let's switch from appearance back to graphic styles. And all I have to do from here, actually I do need to go back to, I take from here and I drag it in here. There we go. Now I just took from the object and dragged it in here. So now I can select this object. I want to click on here. And it applies that exact graphic style or combination of styles that I created. Okay. So it's that simple. Just take whatever group of styles that you've selected. Take the object and drag it in there. If you want to, let's remove this for a minute so you can see. Okay, I have multiple styles applied, as well as custom settings for the appearance. And if I want to add this to my library of graphic styles, just take the object and simply click and drag it into the graphic styles library, and I've added it now. So you have your own custom styles. Okay. Let's also go back to appearance. Because when you have the appearance panel up, and it gives you all the attributes, if I only want to apply, there is no stroke at the moment. But if I want to apply the stroke, and maybe I want multiple strokes applied, you can apply multiple fills, multiple strokes, multiple effects, anything that you want. And when I select the stroke, I can go ahead and I'll apply. Let's see, we're going to switch from here to maybe let's try pink. There we go. So notice this has a pink 1-point stroke. And now I'm going to go ahead and I want this to be more visible, so I'm going to beef this up a little bit. I need to bring up the stroke window a little bit and increase it. So we're going to beef this up a little bit. Notice how this is increasing, and it's only the stroke that's being affected. I really want to exaggerate this, so let's. Okay. Well, maybe I want to add another stroke to this. So I have a stroke within a stroke. And you can have a stroke within a stroke within a stroke within a stroke. So I'll click on here, and I will make a copy of it. So now I have a duplicate of it. This one I'll change to be maybe a 2-point rule. You can see it. And I will change the color so that it's maybe a light orange. Okay. So now when we look at it, when we zoom in, notice that I have an orange stroke within the pink stroke. So you can layer them. There's a little video that I'd like to show you probably tomorrow that covers this in detail, where you can create some pretty amazing things by really controlling your appearance panel here, by layering, strokes, by layering fills, by layering effects. You can create some pretty amazing looks that make it very easy when you're done to, finalizing it, to do some pretty interesting things with it that afterwards don't take a whole lot of muss or fuss or work. Okay? So filters, effects, appearances. Another thing, you may have wondered in layers, what is this? What are these little radio buttons right here? These control the appearance of an object. If I click to the right of it, this actually selects the object. If I wish to change or control the appearance of it, for example, this image that I have right here, or how about this one down here? Let me zoom out. I'm going to try to pick one that I haven't done anything with it. Here's an image right here. I don't know which one this is. You know what? I'm just going to create a new one, and that will make things a lot simpler. Okay. So perhaps I want to apply to this object. Can everybody see, or is this getting really messy back here? Okay, so here's my new object, and that is selected. Even without selecting it, if I click this little radio dial right here, I can change the appearance. So now, whatever I apply to this appearance will show up as a highlighted or gray dot here. So now I can go to effect. Let's again maybe stylize, drop shadow would be good. Okay. Notice that it's highlighted now. This little radio dot. So that indicates to me that an effect has been applied to it. Filters do not show up here in the little appearance panel or appearance dot. Another thing that I can do too is that if I create a whole new layer and I decide on that layer that I want, again, more effects applied to items on that layer. So you may have already done this exercise. That I decide everything on this layer I want to have a drop shadow, or it could be a combination of effects. So with this particular item selected, make sure that I have the right, make sure I have the right layer selected, and I'll go to effects and we'll apply the drop shadow to it. Oh, that's because this is not on that layer. Okay. I'll move this up to that layer, and watch what happens when I put it on that layer. It adds the drop shadow. Now with this layer selected, watch what happens when I create any other or move any other object onto that layer by taking what these already have drop shadows. But if I go ahead with this layer selected and I create any new shapes, they all have drop shadows added. So be careful if you apply an appearance to the layer itself, everything contained within that layer will have those appearances applied to them. If it's only, and I can go ahead and I can click here and I can drag that, and it takes all of them away. Everybody see that? I'm going to do that again. If I click on that appearance button and I drag it into the trash, it just removes all of those appearances in one fell swoop from that layer. So you can apply appearances to individual objects or an entire layer. This is getting sort of cluttered. Now, the next effect that's covered in lesson 11 is the 3D effect. I want to cover something that I think is really where its strength is, and that is when you create custom logos and type. This is where I think it really excels, especially when you want to have a three-dimensional looking type and you have it extruded. It can look really dynamic. So I'll select the type tool, and instead of myriad, I want a nice heavy typeface. So I'm going to select impact. And I want this to be fairly large, so 72 at least. And logo. Okay. And we'll make it red. This will have a, oops. Oh. Okay. Why isn't that showing up? What else have I done to it that I'm not aware of? Oh, okay, that was it. That was all. Oh, I see what I have. I have smart guides turned on. Yes. So I'll turn that on just so we can see that. Okay. So under image effects, what I'm going to do is I'm going to load some others. Let's close this one. What is it? Transparency. Graphic styles. Let's have that. And let's look here. Open graphic style libraries, and let's look at type effects. Here's some nice ones. And let's also open up another one. And let's look under open graphic style library. I want to look at 3D effects. There we go. This is what I want. So now watch what happens when I have the type selected and I select this one. Okay. These can be really fun. And these are styles that have been built. And when I select this, we can go back to our appearance panel. What is it? Let's go back to window, appearance. There we go. And you can see, you can pick apart all of the effects and all of the fills and all of the attributes that have been applied for this. And you can go back and edit them. You're not stuck with these. There's some other fun ones too, so we can select this one. And select, how about this one? Okay. Some really neat ones. Okay. Now, if for any reason you don't like the 3D extrude, and you'll notice that the 3D bevel, 3D extrude, and bevel has been applied to each of these. This is how it works. And I'll just start with a simple square, I suppose. Or maybe I can use one on type. I'll just use some more type. And we will extrude the type. I'm going to click again. We're going to type. And I'll apply some color to it. And I want this type to look three-dimensional. So with the type selected, and it can be any shape, it doesn't have to be type. I just like the way they have used this tool with type. I think it has some really dynamic effects. I'm going to go to Effect, and I'm going to apply 3D. And you can apply Revolve, which lengthens it. So in the assignment, you'll see that if you create the silhouette of a shape and have it spin around 360 degrees, you can create a vase, a bottle, any number of things. There's that option, or you can extrude. So I'm going to select Extrude and Bevel for this. And I'm going to select Preview so you can see what's going on. And we can change the angle from here. Okay. You can also determine the depth of the extrude. You know, this can be like so. And this can be like so. You can really do some pretty wonky stuff. Okay. What we also need to do with this too is we need to determine if you want a bevel. Okay. So this will actually chisel the edges a little bit. We can also look here, let's look at more options. We can determine the light source to see if our type is working okay here. That doesn't look so good. Up here, it's doing some wonky things here. So maybe I should come back and let's reduce this a little bit. Still doing some wonky stuff to it. I have no explanation for that. So this can be turned into space, however you want to view it, by moving this little item here. So it truly is a three-dimensional object when you create it. Maybe I should take off double. Maybe that's what's doing it. That's what was doing it. Okay. You can have open so that it only extrudes the outline, or it's filled so that it extrudes the whole object. Now, what does it do when it lathes something? You have to create a shape to do that. But imagine you're only creating silhouette of the outline of a glass or a bottle or something. So, for example, if I use the pen tool, I'll click like so. I'm trying to do this quickly so I don't get too long here. So I have an open shape like so. It's sort of half of a bottle, right? Now with this object selected, I can now go back to Effect, select 3D, but this time I want to revolve it. So it's preview. And that's not how I want to do it because it's revolving about the center. Does that make sense? Let me cancel this. Let me flip this for a minute. So I'm going to go to, where's the tool? It's in here. Let's go ahead and up here. Now let's try again. Effect. 3D. Revolve. I'll just preview. Not perfect, but you get the idea. See how it spins it around and lays it. So now you have something that looks somewhat three-dimensional. And that's really what most of lesson exercise does. It creates these mock three-dimensional forms that you can work with that look okay. But my preference is what you can do with type. You can just, I think, create some really beautiful effects, things that you can't do in Photoshop. And again, because this is an effect, you can go back and you can continue to edit it. To do what I'm trying to do here with a model or whatever item, you need to be more precise and take the time to accurately draw what it is that you want to lathe. The type works pretty quickly because they're complete shapes and they're accurate by themselves, so you don't need to worry too much about it. Okay. Do you have any questions about any of these tools? Yeah.
Like, you know, the logo thing?
I'm sorry, say that.
For the logo, how do you do the outline?
This one here? Okay, we can take and let's, I like the type. Notice that no outline is selected. So let's go back and let's select an outline. Let's make it orange. Okay. Let's increase it. so it actually extrudes there. And then we can also take, if we take this and let's pick this apart and see how this is done. So if I select this one instead, and let's go back to the appearance. Let me see. No. There it is. So let's select. There we go. So let's look at each of these. They've applied a warp bulge effect to this, to the whole thing. This has been applied to the whole, and it's taking time to redraw this. But notice how within a matter of seconds you can have completely different looks. So that's what they've applied to the whole logo. And we can do the same with this. But then within each of these, notice specifically the fill, okay? We have blue color here. We also have a separate fill. They have two fills that they have applied. Okay. Remember how I said you can apply multiple strokes? You can also apply multiple fills. And then with each fill, you can apply a different extrude effect. So with the color that we have white here, let's look at the settings that we have here for the 3D. Okay. So this is 20 point. There's no bevel. We keep the light source the same, and so we're okay with that. Now let's look at the 3D extrude and bevel for the next one. Okay, for the blue part, because a separate color has been added. If I want to change the color of this, just select this, and let's go back to our color swatches, and maybe I want it to be green instead. There's already there we go. So all of these can be changed and added. If I don't want white, then here maybe I want this to be yellow instead. Mm-hmm.
So they're just strokes, but you just added them, and you just doubled the strokes, or?
You can extrude the strokes or the fills. In this particular case, there are no strokes. This is a stroke that I added, and it extrudes it. If I come back to this item, and I look at my, let's see, I guess that's all I have. But that should be, there should be more appearances to that than that. Okay. Okay, well then let's just say none here. I'll go here and select none. If it changes that back. There we go. So let me select it and add another fill in here. Why this isn't coming up, I don't know. That's kind of weird. Because it should have, maybe because I'm not selecting time. There we go. Okay. Let me select the appearance here and let's add a second fill. So I just copy this fill, so I have a second one. Why is it going here? I'm confused at the moment. Why, with type, it has no stroke and fill here. Okay, it has mixed appearances, which is fine. Characters, type. Let me go back here. Okay, let's select type. So let's go ahead and down here, let's go ahead and add an apparent, no. So it's a separate one. I'm not sure why I can't, at this stage, apply a second appearance to it, meaning that the second fill. So we have our type. And we have multiple strokes and effects. So we can drop and select screen. I'm not sure. I have to go back and figure out why I'm able to apply multiple fills to the editable text. I know if I come back to any other object and change the appearance, I can apply multiple, but why I can't do it to the type or how I have to do it differently, I'm not sure. Okay. So I'm going to have to come back to you with that. Any other questions? No? Okey-doke. So that's some filters, effects, appearances, and 3D effects.